So we are back and we have a production tutorial this week. First of many. We got it done. An amazing piece of software called Camtasia that I discovered that changed my life and made it so easy in the end. We're going to go into Something Blue, our new song. We are going to go into the vocal processing, which is a question I get a lot. And I hope it helps you. I hope it helps anyone who's making their music at home. And I hope it's a format that is easy to digest. But let's get into it. No further ado. Vocal processing for Something Blue.
Something old, something new.
Crazy thing is, this song went number one on the rock charts in New Zealand like a couple of days ago for like 6 hours, which is fucking mental, to be honest. So it felt like a good time to go behind the scenes and look at what we did on the track. We did the track with Griff Clawson and Landon Jacobs, and I just wanted to take you behind the scenes of the sort of stuff we were doing to the vocals, the sort of stuff we'd done to the guitars, and then just a bit more of like the mix bus processing and kind of how we got the sound that we got. Let's get into it.
He's the new, watching you, got me feeling.
So I thought we could just start with a bit of the verse. So,
Dearly beloved, we gathered here today to watch a big mistake. Why it's not your color, what I mean to say, and my feelings haven't changed.
okay, so let's just get into the vocal chain here. So, we've got auto-tune at 15, which is quite aggressive. And we got EQ, removing a bit of 250. I fucking hate 250 in like most vocals or songs in general. I'm always axing this part of the frequency spectrum. Low cut, taking everything below 150 out. And then I always have a noise gate on vocals because there's just little bits that sneak in there sometimes, and it's nice to just have a little bit of threshold. I'd probably just ramp this up a little bit. That seems a little bit low for me. And then here's where it gets really interesting. To me, one of the key pieces that I've learned in vocal processing over the years is you can't really DS too much. I like to DS a lot on the way in. So,
Dearly beloved, we gathered here today to watch a big mistake. Why it's not your color, what I mean to say, and my feelings haven't changed.
So basically, I DS before I compress. And the reason I do that is basically to get the harshness out before we crush the signal and then bring it up. So if we duck down the harshness and the S's early and then we compress and we limit it, we're compressing quite heavily. So at like -6-ish. And then what I like to do, there's actually a preset that I'm in love with called Presence and Control on the Pro MB. That what it does is it brings the vocal right up to the listener. I love it. And then I just take a bit of the mud out, a little bit more mud.
Dearly beloved.
So I really hate that part of the vocal. Again, it's the same thing as that 200, up to like anything under a K. Like it's just mud, a bit more de-essing. So this amazing plugin by OEK Sound, Oak Sound, they do this Soothe plugin and I use it all the time. It's like an amazing de-esser. They got a ton of different presets in here. Highly recommend you getting it. And then after we process this main vocal, it goes into a bus. And this is the UAD 1176 Rev A, which I have on pretty much every Voila vocal.
Dearly beloved, for better or for worse.
And the reason is like, it's quite transparent, but it saturates in a nice way. So like,
Dearly beloved, for better or for worse, he's better.
like even if you absolutely crush it, you still have a usable sound. And I like that. Like I like kind of destroying pieces of gear and like getting everything they have out of them and then fixing it after. So we're hitting that pretty fucking hard. Another Pro MB, we're doing the same thing. I'm pulling more mud out of it around this area. Pro MB is amazing because it's very dynamic. So like if you have a vocal that like doesn't have that much mud in it, it won't start pulling pieces of the mud out because there isn't that much mud in the first place. Whereas if you're just using an EQ and you take the mud out, literally scoop it out, it'll still take that frequency out of a vocal sound that doesn't need it to be scooped out. So that's why I love dynamic EQs and dynamic compressors. This is a cheat code in my eyes. The Maag EQ, I now use the UAD version. I used to use, I think, the Plugin Alliance version or whatever other version there is of the Maag. It's unbelievable. I've always flirted with getting like a 500 version of the Maag, like the little box, and I'm always jealous when people have it. But the Airband is, I don't even use any of these, I don't think. But, so before it, after it. Yeah, so what it does in my eyes is it takes the high shelf and it just is so smooth and sort of bright without being brittle sounding. And it's the way that I get my vocals to be really bright but not harsh. Basically, DS a lot on the way in, compress after I DS, and then I add the high end back in again. So everything I've lost with the DSs, like Soothe and RDSer, and I'll use other ones sometimes, I then put it back in with the Maag after compressing. So it's like this super baked vocal that then you add the hype on at the end. And although it sounds like it's quite a mechanical process, I find it's a really, really good way of getting the vocals sounding massive and really in your face without being too dynamic. The S is too loud there, and oh, this kind of pokes out too much. The whole thing is kind of baked in straight away. And that's, I kind of like to be quite heavy-handed with that sort of thing. And, you know, it can get a bit much sometimes if you're on a verse or something and it's like super exposed, I'll dial it back a bit. But that's kind of my thought process on vocals. And then I've got this Pro Q3 to just... Yeah, there's my two problem areas again. It's like that slightly muddy part of the frequency range that's always down there. And then you've also got this like 3K. It just gets harsh there sometimes, my voice, when I'm sort of louder. So I always like to, again, this is dynamic EQ, right? It's not actual chunks we're taking out of it. It's only taking chunks out when it gets really hot in these regions. So that's kind of the vocal processing on this song. Let's get to the chorus.
Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, something old, is the new, watching you got me feeling, something old, something new.
Okay, so we are using the same vocal bus, I believe. Yes, we are. De-essing is, again, heavy out the gate. We've got 3 DSs on the main, and then essentially we've got 4. We've got 4 DSs on this like vocal chain, which is insane. But with this chorus specifically, because it's so sort of low in my voice and it is not very loud, because normally on a rock song when you're really going for it and you're loud and you're screamy, it has the highness and the frequency range to poke through in that like 2-3K. But on this one, it's way down there. So all the sort of excitement in the vocal has to be created. And that's what we're doing here by de-essing the hell out of it. But then again, doing the thing where we're pushing that airband 8 dB. So that's a massive shelf. And we're hitting this super hard. And I would have thought I'm limiting. Yeah, so I'm also limiting. That's heavy. That's a heavy bit of limiting on the actual original vocal track. So
something old, something new.
So this is the Faraday limiter. And Good Hertz, they make amazing plugins. This is basically crushing that original audio track. So the signal flow here is, this is the vocal, and then this is the bus that it's going into. And I'm just crushing the limiter on the actual vocal track, the original one, to hit this really quite hard. And that's where the hype comes from, the excitement comes from it in the actual vocal sound, is because instead of the verse vocal, which I'm sure is just down a bit in level compared, it doesn't have the limiter on. Whereas when we put this limiter on and we're taking it 7 dB of threshold down, we're pushing it a lot harder into the actual bus. Yeah, this is my vocal bus, just so you've seen it.
Something old, something new.
Sends are Valhalla Vintage Verb, just a little bit of that. That's actually the stock setting. Oh no, it's not, I'm lying to you. Smooth plate setting, and just reduce the decay a bit. 100% mix. I don't like to put my effects on the actual tracks. I like to have sends. Doubler, bus 2, I always do it. I always have it. Real simple. I just pull this from the middle, just take it out completely, so I just have the sides. So if we just listen to the doubler, so that's just in the sides. Helps just to bring out the vocal a lot. And then bus 8, I always do a little bit of delay, a little bit of vocal pongplex is the setting I use, and I just dial a little bit of that in with the actual vocal. It just blends the whole thing into the track. Okay, last thing, let's go into the backing vocals for the track.
Something old, something new.
So these I was kind of shocked, like when I was actually listening back, because they're very like neutered. We really have DS the shit out of these, just like SM7 on the couch type thing. This microphone is the SM7, by the way. The good thing about that though is like backing vocals, I don't really want the top end of the backing vocals, so I always basically get independent doubles. So a left and a right, a left and a right of whatever part we're doing, whether it's a double of the lead vocal or a harmony or anything like that. I take a distinct left and a distinct right, and I pan them hard left, hard right. It just sounds bigger to me, and like I don't think any plugin can like fake that. Like any stereo maker or whatever can't really do that. Again, limited them, so really crushing them as much as you possibly can to get them to fit in a box so that they really sustain a certain level across the performance and can be sort of brought in and out really easily. And then we just compress the whole thing again. So this is my bus BVs, is my backing vocal bus. That's what that stands for.
Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue.
So again, we're just compressing a bit more so that all these vocals that we have recorded fit together really nicely and they glue together. And then once we sum those, again, we've got Soothe, Channel EQ, just pulling out a bit more mud. With this guy, they both go to the same bus here. Vox Sub, here we go. And so Vox Sub combines those two, and then it sends to Mix Bus. And on the Mix Bus, the final bit of processing that the vocals get will be, I always have gain there just in case my levels start getting too hot, and I just turn it down before it hits the processing. Then I've got an SSL compressor, probably only doing a little bit. Let's see.
Something old, something new.
Yeah, super, super easy, like just a tiny bit of compression. And then this is another cheat code of mine. Take notes on this one. I like to always get the mono frequency under 80. So everything under 80 gets folded to mono. And then just give it a little bit of width. This is a Brainworks what's it called? Dynamic EQ V3 or something. BX Digital V3. It's just a great like final plugin to get the sound behaving before you start bouncing things. Because everything can get a bit rambunctious before this. And this is basically the plugin that can distill everything into a more simple format. And then I add a little bit of 1 dB on the top end and a little bit of 1 dB on the low end here. And then also just taking a bit of that frequency. It's a horrible frequency. That is spot on. And so I take a dB out of that, and 0.7 is like my golden sort of Q number. Andrew Garver taught me that back from music school days. And I've done it ever since. And then just a couple limiters sort of squishing the sound. I like to put parallel processors in terms of limiting. I don't like to have one limiter do all the work. I think it sounds better if you have multiple plugin instances doing the work. And then that's pretty much the vocal sound here, guys. Oh, and the final piece I actually want to show you that I do in a lot of our songs. Okay, this is super weird, but it's something you don't really notice in a song, but you can feel it. Like, you don't hear it, but you feel it. Like, if I take it out, you notice that it's gone. It's just, like, doesn't have the same. It's sick, but to me, you add this in, it just pushes it a bit more. It gives it a bit more attitude, and it gives it like that ear candy thing. Oh, what's that? It's just vocal tones. There's a plugin, Exhale, made by a company called Output, I think. And I just will literally find whatever the key the track's in, and just play a note that is either the tonic or the dominant note of the scale, and just add that in really low volume. Just take it out, add it back in again. Just in amongst it, it just gives it attitude. It feels like a sort of like a pedal note, a pedal tone, And then I'll often like just grab a kickstart. Like I'm shocked I didn't grab it on this one, but I would just grab a kickstart or anything that's like a sidechain, you know, Exvo, LFO tool or whatever, and just let it bounce. So like that sort of thing. And then as the track goes on, you can just hike the level of this a little bit. But what it does is it glues the vocal pieces together, adds cohesion between the vocals and the instrumental pieces. And I've done it for the longest time. I think it's a technique from EDM, like, because I started in EDM making dance music, but now there's little pieces I always find that are like really useful, like sidechainy tricks and like stuff like this, that is a vibe setter. It sets the tone for the track. And that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what track you want to get into next. We can jump deeper into this one if you want, or we can jump into another one. Happy to go wherever and, you know, bring you guys value in whatever way works best. All right, much love. Take care. Cheers.
Okay, guys, hope that was helpful. I actually really enjoyed it. One little nugget of information I also just wanted to quickly say was a way I love to produce, find a song I really like and try and recreate it. Try and like copy the sounds that they have. It's a really fun way to learn what works and what doesn't. And sometimes it can get frustrating and you can't get that sound for some reason. Oh, they must have some secret plugin. But really what it is, it's just a combination of little things. All the little like percentage changes add up to a really good sound. But that's just my final thought, and sending love, sending all the best wishes for the week ahead. Anyway, cheers guys. Take care.